Hi, greetings, fellow lords and ladies. While I look at Game of Thrones Season 5, now continues on with the episode The Dance of Dragons. So, beginning of the Wall. Jon Snow, Tormund, and the surviving few thousand wildlings from Hardhome arrive at the Wall before the gates of Castle Black. For a tense moment, Sir Alliser Thorne hesitates to let all of their old enemies through, but he finally gives the order to open the gate. Thousands of wildlings come through the wall to Castle Black itself, including many women and children, and even the giant One. Many of the Night's Watch glare at them. Alistair coolly tells Jon that he has a good heart to save so many people, but that it may end up getting them all killed. Jon reunites with Samuel Tarly, but is despondent, saying that the mission was a disaster and they only managed to save a small fraction of the wildlings at Hardhome. Sam points to different wildlings passing by, notes that each of them would have died if he had done nothing at all, so it wasn't a complete failure. That's true. Anyway, in the north, during the night Stannis Baratheon's army camp, Melisandre gazes intently into the flames of her tent's brazier, hoping to receive visions from the Lord of Light. In the distance, several tents burst into flames, sending confused men shouting, and one horse screams as he runs away on fire. During the night, Ramsay Bolton and 20 men raided the camp, burning much of their food supplies and heavy siege weapons. Hundreds of horses also died in the fire. Davos notes that their situation is now dire. They don't have enough food to make the march back to Castle Black or to advance to Winterfell, and without their siege weapons they have little chance of storming the castle to take its food supplies anyway. Sansa asks how this could happen, and Davos insists that the Boltons knew the North's terrain better than they do, so it was easy for a raiding party to sneak into camp. Stan suggests that the watchmen are either collaborating with the enemy or simply not attentive enough at their posts to allow such a disaster. Either way, he orders them to be executed. Stan says to slaughter the dead horses for the meat, which should at least buy them a little time. Sansa's demeanor becomes grave and half-stunned, as he believes there is only one course of action to take. He starts by ordering Davos to return to Castle Black to ask for more supplies from Jon Snow. Davos is confused, given that even if Jon did decide to resupply them, the provisions probably wouldn't reach them in time, and wonders why Stannis would send him instead of just a messenger. Sansa said it's because he needs his hand of the king to engage in diplomacy to win Jon over. In reality, Stannis sent Davos away so he wouldn't be around to stop what Stannis was planning on doing next. Davos visits the tent of Stannis' daughter Shireen Baratheon to say goodbye. She is enjoying reading a book by Grand Maester Munkun about the Dance of the Dragons, a major civil war in the history of the Seven Kingdoms. They share a laugh about how Knight tried to kill the dragon Vagar by sneaking up on it with a mirrored shield, but it didn't fool the dragon, who promptly roasted the knight. Davos gives her a wooden stag figurine he has been carving as a present. She asks why he has been so nice to her. He explains that he felt bad that his son Mathos always insisted that his father learn to read, and he never did. Mathos died in the war. By teaching Davos to read, Shireen helped him fulfill his son's wish. Sometime after Davos leaves, Stannis himself visits Shireen, visibly shaken but trying to speak to her kindly. He asks about her reading, and she explains that the Dance of the Dragons was a great civil war between Rhaenyra Targaryen and her half-brother Aegon, each of whom thought they deserved to sit on the Iron Throne. The great lords of the Seven Kingdoms each declared for one or the other, dividing the realm in half, and tearing Westeros apart. Brother fought brother, and dragon fought dragon in the devastating war. It was a disaster for House Targaryen as well, who never truly recovered. Sansa asks who she would have chosen, Rhaenyra or Aegon, and says she wouldn't have chosen either. It was all the choosing sides that plunged Westeros into civil war. Stannis gravely responds that sometimes the world forces a man to choose even if he doesn't want to, but if he stays true to himself, he knows what he must do, and then it isn't really a choice at all, even if he hates doing it. Shireen says it's alright and she wants to help him. The response is she doesn't even know what he wants. She doesn't care enough if there's any way she can help, and he says that there is. Shireen says she wants to, because she is Prince Shireen of House Baratheon, his daughter. They hug and he embraces her tightly, and Stannis whispers, "Forgive me." Later, Shireen exits her tent as well and sees all the soldiers gather around and asks where her father is. Coming to the front of the assembly, she sees Melisandre in front of a wooden pyre with a large stake in the middle. She starts shouting to see her father, but is grabbed by soldiers who drag her to the pyre and tie her to the stake. Melisandre soothingly tries to calm her by saying that it will all be over soon. Shireen cries ring out through the camp, but no one intervenes. Santa and Shireen's mother, Celeste, then appear in the crowd. Shireen sees them and begs her mother and father to help, but they do nothing. Celeste says aloud to herself that the sacrifice is what the Lord of Light wants. Mel Soldier begins praying and announces that they offer up the life of this girl to the Lord of Light, and she sets the pyre on fire. As she explained to Stannis before, she believes that sacrificing Shireen's life, which could taste the power of a king's blood, will gain the Lord of Light's favor, who in return will aid them in their time of need by lifting the blizzard. Stannis believes that if they do nothing, they will remain snowbound and will starve to death here. Shrinking to his superior cry, "Mother, please!" and "Father, please!" Eventually even Celeste, who only had a cold and non-existent relationship with her daughter, suddenly breaks and rushes forward, thinking that they can't go through with it. Soldiers restrain her, however, and she sinks to the ground, crying in despair. Shireen's cries become even more frightened, but stands to watch even as Celeste sobs on the ground. As the flames begin to consume Shireen, she wordlessly screams in pain and fear, and eventually even Stannis cannot bear to look anymore. She burns to death. Oh. Anyway, in the Water Gardens, Jaime Lannister is escorted to the main apartments of the Water Gardens by Arya Hotath to be received by Prince Doran Martell in a luxurious solar, along with Ilaria Sand, Doran's son Tristan Martell, and Jaime's niece Marcella Baratheon. They lounge on a circle of couches, Marcella cuddling with Tristan. Jaime knows that Marcella is wearing a revealing Dornish-style dress now, and she says that the warm climate of Dorne agrees with her. Coming to the point, Doran asks Jaime why he had snuck into Dorne to abduct Marcella back to King's Landing. He says he feared for her safety, but when Doran says why he didn't just send a letter by messenger raven, he explains that they received a threatening message. Marcella's Lannister lion pendant jammed in the mouth of a dead viper. Doran glares at Ilaria, while Confused Marcella explains that her pendant was simply stolen from her room. Jaime asks if Doran intends to behead him, but, acting more sympathetic now that Jaime revealed he was threatened first, he says that he will not, because he wishes to avoid war. Doran has seen what war can do. Bodies piled in the battlefield and orphans left starving in cities at home, and he will not lead his people into that. Laird Blaine asks what he will do, break bread with the Lannisters? However, he says that is precisely what he will do. That's why he's poured for Jaime, and he raises his own goblet and offers toast to King Tommen, first of his name, long may he reign. Jaime returns the toast, but Lara deliberately pours out her wine onto the floor in disgust. Doran asks if Tommen indeed commands that his sister be returned to the capital, and Jaime politely says he does, to which Doran says he cannot disobey his king. Marcella will return to King's Landing. She is upset for a moment, but then Doran explains the situation. His Tristan will go along with them, to take over the seat on the small council which Tywin granted to Oberyn, but which was vacated by his death. Doran insists that for the alliance between the Iron Throne and Dorne to continue, the engagement with Tristan and Marcella must stand, and Tristan will simply take his Uncle Oberyn's place on the small council. Jaime finds Doran's request entirely reasonable, and Marcella is ecstatic that she will not be separated from Tristan. So Jaime agrees. Alara gets up to leap and snaps that it is no wonder that Doran cannot stand, because he has no spine. As she walks out, he grabs her by the arm and lowers his voice, saying that she is the mother of 4 of his nieces, and for their sake, he hopes she has a long, happy life, but if she talks him that way again, she will not. Jaime then asks what fate will befall Bronn, who is still imprisoned. Bronn punched out Tristan when they tried to take Marcella, and Jaime is asked what the normal punishment is for striking a prince where he is from. Jaime politely insists that Bronn was only following orders and they can't punish him for simply following Jaime's commands. Tristan agrees, saying he's learned the value of mercy from his father, but he has one condition. In the prison cells, Nymeria and Tyene Sand spar out of boredom, as Obara tries to ignore them and get some sleep. The guards arrive and release Bronn, and Tyene mocks him as he leaves. Aerys leads Bronn back to the Solar where Doran, Jaime, and the rest remain. Bronn apologizes to Tristan when he sees him and says he didn't mean anything by hitting him before. Jaime then gladly informs Bronn that the Martells agree to let Bronn go with Jaime, but on one condition. Wordlessly, Aerys then delivers it by striking Bronn in the face with his elbow, so hard that Bronn is knocked to the floor, as a payback for hitting Tristan. Later in the courtyard, Ariel brings Illyrian sand snakes before Prince Doran in his wheelchair. Doran gives Illyria an ultimatum. She can choose either swear allegiance to him and that she will not try something like this again, or she can choose death. Restraining tears, she kneels and kisses his hand. Doran says that he believes in second chances and she is forgiven, but sternly warns her that he does not believe in third chances. Illyria then finds Jamie in the study writing a letter back to King's Landing informing of his return. He writes very poorly, given that he's using his non-dominant left hand, and Illyria remarks that he writes like a 7-year-old. Illyria notes how odd it is that she and Oberyn were down on further sexuality at King's Landing, and Jamie is scorned for his incestuous love for Cersei, to which he remains silent and gives no acknowledgement. 100 years ago, if his name were Targaryen, no one would blink to deny such a relationship. Cryptically, perhaps spurred by Doran, she then says that she knows your daughter, Marcella, had no part in what befell Oberyn. Maybe even Jaime's innocent of that, and indeed he is, as Oberyn volunteered for the trial by combat. She exits, and Jaime is left to ponder what seems to be her apology. Anyway, in Braavos, Arya, in her Lana persona, is once again pushing her car through the canal streets of Braavos, staring various types of shellfish. She passes the Thin Man, who sells insurance to sailors, having been given a mission by the Faceless men to assassinate him with poisoned oysters. Just as she reaches him, however, she stops her tracks and stares fixedly on a boat at the dock, which has caught her full attention. Stepping on the boat is Maester Coin Mace Tyrell, and the commander of his guards is none other than Sir Meryn Trent of the King's Guard, one of the names on Arya's kill list, which she recites as a daily prayer. Meryn helped to betray her father and killed her water dancing trainer Syrio Farrell. Mace was sent by Cersei Lannister to treat with Ironbank of Braavos, which started calling in the crown's massive debts, and at least to try to gain a little more time to deal with the problem from the bankers. Mace is greeted at the dock by the bank's representative, Tycho Nestoris. Mace addresses Tycho politically and amiably, though he doesn't realize that his jokes aren't really funny. All the while, Arya remains frozen, staring at Sir Meryn Trant, ignoring the Thin Man's request for some of her oysters. Arya abandons her mission to assassinate the Thin Man, and still follows Sir Meryn Trant as he accompanies Mace. After visiting the Iron Bank building, Meryn and a few other Lannister guards depart from Mace that night and go to visit a local brothel. Arya sneaks to the brothel under the guise of simply selling her oysters and clams from a handbasket. The bouncer Briscoe doesn't want her in at first, but the prostitute Lahara, who was one of Arya's regular customers, tells him to let her stay, as oysters are held to be an aphrodisiac. Arya sells a few and then makes her way to the back chambers where she spies on Meryn from behind some shutters. Meryn catches a brief look at her at one point, and she seems vaguely familiar, but he just shrugs it off. It has been years since he last saw her, and she is older and thus looks different. She has different Braavosi-style hair and clothes, and doesn't think Arya will logically be in Braavos. The brothel's madam presents several girls in succession to Meryn, but each passes on each as too old. She brings out her best and most expensive prostitute, a beautiful woman named Anara, but Meryn again dismisses her as too old. The man slowly realizes that Meryn is perversely interested in young girls who are barely teenagers, around Arya's age, so she brings a very young girl whom Meryn accepts gruffly, but only saying he expects another fresh one tomorrow. After he leaves, the man runs into Arya and shoos her out. Later, Arya returns to the House of Black and White empty-handed, having abandoned her first mission for the Faceless Men. When Jaqen asks what happened, she lies to him and says that the Thin Man simply wasn't hungry today and didn't order any of her oysters. Jaqen quips that this is perhaps why he is the Thin Man, and her promises that she will follow through on the assassination tomorrow. She departs, and while Jaqen seems to suspect that she was lying, he makes no outward reaction to it. Oh, it's interesting. And finally, in Meereen, attended by Tyrion Lannister, Missandei, and Dar Naharis, Daenerys sits in the royal box at the Daznak's pit. Hizdahr Zolorak arrives, claiming to have been putting the final touch on the arrangements for the event. When the first two combatants take the field, Hizdahr indicates that Daenerys is to start the fight with a clap of her hands. Dar verbally spars with Hizdahr for much of the first match, drawing Daenerys' attention from the spectacle in front of her. Her attention returns to the arena when Jorah Mormont gives the traditional dedication to her. In spite of Jorah's previous successes, he has sadly mixed results in the grand melee he finds himself in. The grand melee begins with 6 fighters, with Jorah pairing up against a Nervosi long-axe fighter. The Nervosi is able to land several blows against Jorah, eventually knocking him to the ground. However, Jorah is able to bring out his dagger and eventually buried it in the Nervosi's chest after a brief melee. Meanwhile, a Nervosi water dancer easily dispatches his Dothraki opponent and focuses his attention on Jorah. Jorah finds himself hopelessly outmatched by the water dancer and suffers many cuts from his opponent's rapier. During the fight, a Meereenese pit fighter is able to lance his opponent in the chest. The water dancer eventually knocks Jorah to the ground and is about to deliver a killing blow, but fails to notice the pit fighter who kills him from behind. Jorah then battles the pit fighter, kills him, and is the last fighter standing. Jorah stares for a few moments at Daenerys, then suddenly grabs and hurls a spear at the royal box, embedding himself in the son of the Harpy sneaking up behind Daario. The sons of the Harpy reveal themselves on every level of the arena and begin slaughtering, collaborating masters and freedmen alike, his star included. Jorah and Daario evacuate Daenerys from the royal box, while Tyrion rescues Missandei. Finding the exit is blocked, the group makes a stand in the center of the pit with the remainder of the Unsullied defenders. Seeing they are hopelessly outnumbered, Daenerys takes Missandei's hand and closes her eyes, ready to face her death. At that moment, a draconic screech pierces the air, and Drogon descends upon the arena, flying out of a giant flame burst. Many of the sons scatter in terror as Drogon bites, crushes, and mercilessly burns the nearest ones to death. The sons rally enough to attack Drogon with spears, embedding them tough dragons in the dragon's tough hide. Daenerys hastily makes an effort to remove the spears, prompting Drogon to turn on her with a huge roar. He stops short of attacking her and becomes calm. Trying to get Drogon out of the sun's range, Daenerys climbs atop his back and bids him to fly. Vahald. Fly, saying, Balad, sorry if I mispronounced that, becoming the first Targaryen dragon rider in over a century. The Sons of the Harpy routed now for Daario, Jorah, Missandei, and Tyrion look on astonishment as Drogon soars away. Ooh, boy. Excuse me. I'll get back here. Right. So let's take a look at some behind-the-scenes notes from this episode. This episode takes its title from the 5th and most recent novel of the Song of Ice and Fire series, A Dance with Dragons. Like the book title, however, it may be not towards The Dance of the Dragons, which was the name given to the civil war between two rival branches of House Targaryen after the death of King Viserys I. Despite this event occurring prior to the events of the series, it may refer to the near civil war ongoing in Meereen between Daenerys and the Sons of the Harpy. The soundtrack playing over the credits is a rendition of Daenerys' theme, the Dragon Flight Attack motif, and the Dragon Flight motif. In the official soundtrack release, it is titled Blood of the Dragon. The scenes at the Great Pit of Desnick and Meereen were filmed in Osuna, Spain, in the Plaza de Toros, which has real sandstone walls and is over a century old. Controversially, it is an active used bullfighting ring. Annual events are held at the Plaza de Toros, which ends up with bulls actually being killed in the arena, though sometimes the bull wins. The entire sequence of the Colosseum took 12 days to shoot and involved 1,000 extras, who were then digitally doubled up to make an even larger crowd. Notice again that not every Harpy statue in Meereen could be torn down, because many of them were large, load-bearing statues, but Daenerys had her soldiers deface such statues. A large Harpy statue supports the outer wall of Desnick's pit and has its face smashed. This is only the 5th episode in the TV series where no scenes are set at King's Landing at all. The 4th was episode 5 of this season, Kill the Boy, which focused largely on the Boltons. Much of this episode focuses on Stannis Baratheon's camp, Arya and Braavos, Dorne, and events in Meereen. Members of the Lannisters and Tyrells do not appear, Jaime and Mace, but not those in King's Landing. Members of the Lannisters and Tyrells do appear, Jaime and Mace, but not those at King's Landing. Littlefinger, the Arryns, and the Vale do not appear. Winterfell itself, House Bolton, Reek, Sansa, and Brienne do not appear in this episode. House Greyjoy has not appeared at all throughout season 5, and therefore there is only one episode left after this. Shireen is still alive at the end of the fifth and most current novel, A Dance with Dragons, but in the inside the episode featurette for this episode, executive producers David Benioff and D.B. Weiss confirmed that George R. R. Martin told them that Shireen is going to be burned to death as a sacrifice in an unpublished future novel. Benioff said, quote, "When George first told us about this, it was one of those moments where I remember looking at Dan and it was just like, God, it's so horrible, and it's so good in a story sense because it all comes together," end quote. Shireen's death is thus the first major spoiler even for book readers. The only thing that has been somewhat of a spoiler so far is the appearance of the White Walker leader and the revelation that Craster's sons are indeed being turned into new White Walkers back in Season 4's Oathkeeper. It was implied that this was happening, and presumably the White Walkers would have some kind of leader. The burning of Shireen, however, is the first major character death confirmed to take place in an unpublished novel. In the novels, Stannis actually left Shireen, Melissa, and Melisandre at Castle Black with Jon Snow. The basic idea that Shireen is burned as a sacrifice seems to have been moved around somewhat from how this will play out in the novels. In the books, Melisandre is still insistent on burning a sacrifice of royal blood, to the point that before his death, Jon fears that she might want to burn Maester Aemon because he's a Targaryen and specifically the son of a ruling king. It's very strongly implied that Melisandre might burn Shireen as a sacrifice in the future, but in the upcoming apocalyptic war against the White Walkers, and also the blizzard halting his march against the Boltons at Winterfell will cease. When he marches to Winterfell, Stannis actually instructs the men he leaves behind that if he dies in the assault, he expects them to keep fighting to put Shireen on the Iron Throne. Fundamentally, however, Martin confirmed to Benioff and Weiss that in at least some form, Melisandre is going to burn Shireen alive as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light in a future novel. The TV producers were not initially certain that Shireen would even appear in the TV series due to time constraints. Back when Sansa was introduced in Season 2, they later said that they actually focused very carefully on the lines saying that he has no sons, intentionally opened the possibility to introduce in the future that he does have a daughter. Even Carrie Ingram was hired to play Shireen when she was subsequently introduced in Season 3. She stated that they only hired her for the 1 year, again uncertain if there would be enough time to extensively include the character into the TV series. Afterwards, they enjoyed Ingram's performance and how the character was working out, so they gave her more scenes in the next 2 seasons. It's unclear at what point Martin told them that Shireen was going to be burned to death in a major moment in a future novel. Shireen's death seems to be based on the Greek myth of Iphigenia during the Trojan War. Brother King Agamemnon needed to lead the combined Greek fleet to Troy, but the winds were against them and it remained stuck on the coast in Greece, due to Agamemnon killing a deer in a sacred grove of the goddess Artemis. Left unable to fulfill their oaths to attack Troy, Agamemnon was told by the seer Calchas that the only way to appease the gods so they will calm the winds and let the fleet leave is if he sacrifices the life of his daughter Iphigenia. Agamemnon was at first horrified, but under pressure from the other Greek captains, he reluctantly agrees. Iphigenia is unaware of her imminent sacrifice until the last moment, when she is brought before the altar. Ironically, while in the myth, this actually ultimately leads to the Greek victory in Troy, and achieves the exact opposite for Stannis. Although this sacrifice does melt the snow and open the way to Winterfell in the following episode, Shireen's gruesome death disgusts Stannis' men, and many of them desert as a result, leading to Stannis' defeat and death. Of note, since the Greek people cannot tolerate stories about human sacrifice, the original story was edited. In the edited version, Artemis saves Iphigenia, places a stag in her place upon the altar, and takes her to Taurus. Many years later, Iphigenia's brother Orestes arrives at Taurus and brings her back to Greece. Shireen's execution is the third kinslaying performed by Stannis, following Renly's murder and the execution of Axel Florent. Shireen's death has been foreshadowed in the Season 2 episode of Vala Margolis. Melisandre told Stannis, "You will betray your family. You will betray everything you once held dear." Davos Heroes was previously seen starting to carve a piece wood 4 episodes ago and killed the boy when he left Castle Black, which it finishes as the stag figurine he gives Shireen in this episode. Actress Carrie Ingram actually got to keep the carved stag figurine and posted a picture of herself with it in her room on her Twitter feed. Nice. Shireen extensively mentions in this episode that she's reading a history book about the Dance of the Dragons, a massive civil war between two rival branches of House Targaryen, fought about 170 years ago, which devastated Westeros. Oddly, she says that the title of the history book was written by Munkin. She says the title of the history book written by Munkin that she is reading is The Dance of Dragons, a true telling. It implies that the Dance of Dragons was the name of the war. In the novels, the name of the civil war is The Dance of the Dragons, and moreover, Munkin's book is titled The Dance of the Dragons, a true telling. It is unknown why this episode made such minor dialogue changes, though the season for animated Blu-ray shorts did refer to it by the correct full name, The Dance of the Dragons. Whatever the case, Shireen actually gives a succinct summation of the war. Rhaenyra Targaryen fought her half-brother Aegon II Targaryen for the throne. The great lords of the realm chose sides between them. Ultimately, Targaryen fought Targaryen and Dragon fought Dragon. So many dragons died in the Civil War that the Targaryens never really recovered. So few dragons were left alive by the end that within the next 30 years they went extinct. Joffrey Baratheon previously explained who Rhaenyra was by name back in Season 3, Episode 4, and now is what just ended. So at the end, she was captured by her brother, who then fed her to his dragon while her son watched. Shireen mentions that Sir Byron Swan tried to sneak up on the dragon Vhagar with a mirrored shield, a trick which was successfully used by the legendary Sir Serwyn of the Mirror Shield to kill the dragon Urax. Vhagar was one of the original 3 Targaryen dragons used to conquer Westeros, as I explained back in Season 2's A Man Without Honor. Shireen couldn't possibly know this from reading Munkin's book, but in the 5th novel, when this incident is brought up to Tyrion, he's much better read. It points out that Munkin's true telling actually contains several factual errors. Byron Swan fought against Rhaenyra, and Vhagar belonged to Aegon II's faction. Thus Byron had no reason to attempt killing Vhagar. In reality, Tyrion explains, Byron tried to sneak up on Rhaenyra's own dragon, Syrax. The end result was the same. The ploy didn't work, and he was roasted alive. Sansa remarks on how odd it is that it was called The Dance of the Dragons. In universe, that is just what popular songs and minstrels ended up calling it. Maesters have commented on how it isn't a very appropriate name, and the death of the dragons might be more fitting, given the massive loss of both human life and dragons killed. The loose reason might be that when dragons fight each other, it symbolizes an elaborate aerial dance, as each tries to land strikes with teeth and claws on the other, darting back and forth and making attack runs. George R. R. Martin did start writing a series of prequel novellas in 2013, expanding on the events of the Dance of the Dragons in more detail. Martin has been in discussions with HBO about various prequel projects that they might want to make a spin-off TV series after the main Game of Thrones series is finished, but talks are really tentative at the moment. The other prequel novellas, set only 90 years before the main series, set 107 years ago, The Tales of Junk and Egg, would probably be made first. Essentially, the Dance of the Dragons was a civil war like the War of the Five Kings, but in which both sides had dragons. If the Dance of the Dragons will ever be adapted into a prequel TV project, it will not be for many years. Well, I'm not so sure about that, but hey, whatever. No explanation is given for why Jon Snow, Tormund, and the thousands of surviving wildlings arrive at Castle Black from the north side of the wall. This is an intense moment in which Alistair Thorne hesitates by letting them through. They're lastly fleeing Hardhome by ship. The easternmost castle on the wall, Eastwatch by the Sea, is also their port on the east coast. The Jon never explicitly says he's going to Eastwatch to depart with the fleet. It is implied due to previous acknowledgments of its status as a port. Sorry about that. The fleet should have simply sailed around the wall and deposited them during the Eastwatch, after which, if they wanted to go to Castle Black, they would march along the south side of the wall. It is known that there are several rewrites to the Hardhome scenes. They originally thought they could film in Iceland, but eventually decided to expand it to a major action set piece, necessitating building an expansive set in the same quarry where the Castle Black set is built in Northern Ireland. It is possible that the surviving wildlings marched overland to Castle Black because this is an early scene filmed before the rewrites. In the novels, Jon never goes to Hardhome, and Tormund's wildlings, who never go to Hardhome, are simply gathered in the haunted forest north of Castle Black. so there was a tense moment where they had to be led through the tunnel from the north side of the wall. It is possible that the earlier drafts of the scene were based more closely on how this played out in the novels. In universe, it might be explained that Stannis' sailship fleet that he loaned to Jon was so terrified after the massacre of Hardhome and may be facing such bad weather that they refused to sail along the coast back to Eastwatch, instead just sailing for a few days down the coast for a relatively safe distance, then making Jon and the wildlings debark, and then fleeing directly across the open ocean back to the free cities. Nevertheless, this explanation doesn't cover why Jon and the free folk survivors don't go to Eastwatch, but instead make the perilous march to Castle Black, as seen on the map at right. Castle Black is in the center of the continent, and even over land it would be a much shorter walk to Eastwatch and its gate through the wall than to Castle Black. Another possible explanation is that Stannis Baratheon's fleet never used Eastwatch as a port of anchor. We never see where Stannis had ships anchored in the Children, leaving over the possibility that he actually had the fleet anchor further up north as a possible means of surprising the wildling forces. This is supported by the fact that when Jon and Tormund leave for Hardhome, they actually head toward the gateway through the wall instead of leaving south of Castle Black. This, however, does not explain why they went on anchor at Eastwatch after the events of Hardhome, when there was a clear and present danger of white attack. The other possible explanation is that the fleet wanted to get out there quickly and simply packed towards supplies they left at their original port of anchor, hightailing out of there afterwards. Jon Snow and Tormund would then have determined that they might as well use the opportunity to rescue more free folk on the walk back, which was, after all, the point of the mission. The scenes in which Prince Doran Martell and his family received Jaime Lannister were filmed at the luxurious interiors of the famous Alcazar Seville, a medieval Islamic royal palace in Spain and a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which has rarely been open to filming. This episode provides confirmation and dialogue that Ellaria Sand is the mother of 4 of Oberyn Martell's daughters. It was Oberyn previously established in Season 4 that he has 8 daughters in TV continuity, just as he does in the novels. In the novels, Ellaria's 4 daughters are Aelia, Obella, Doria, and Loreza. 3 of them are small children who not yet play a significant role in the narrative. Play any significant role in the narrative. The Ariane preview chapters of the next novel indicate the eldest is Aelia, who is 14 years old. Is going to start accompanying Oberyn's older daughters. The TV version of the Sand Snakes has been somewhat condensed. Specifically, Tyene Sand is essentially a combination of 2 of his daughters from the novels, Tyene and Aelia Sand. Buck Tyene is the master poisoner but not Ellaria's daughter, while Buck Aelia is the eldest of Ellaria's 4 daughters, meaning that she is young and headstrong and trying to prove herself to her older sisters. Tiva Tyene combines Buck Tyane's skill of poisons, Buck Aelia's status as Ellaria's daughter, and the youngest of the Sand Snakes that are fighting age. All his younger 3 girls are small children. Oddly, Aelia Sand was actually mentioned by name as existing in the TV continuity by Oberyn himself, though due to time restrictions there is a good chance she will not appear in the TV show. She has barely appeared in the current novels. Given the reshelving of the Sand Snakes in the TV series, there was some confusion over exactly how many of them Ellaria is the mother of the TV version. Just as in the books, she is the mother of 4 of them. However, because she wasn't Tyene's mother in the novels, that would mean that she can't be the mother of all 4 of the youngest Sand Snakes behind Tyene, Aelia, Obella, Doria, and Loreza. Although no mention has been made of Sorella Sand, daughter of Oberyn and Summer Islander ship captain, though she is not in Dorne at this point in the novels, the House Martell family tree remains in some confusion until the writers make official statements about this. Moreover, Doran Martell remarks that his son Trystane was learned to rule by his own someday, implying but not definitely stating that he is Doran's heir. In the novels, he is the youngest of Doran's 3 children, of his daughter Arianne and elder son Quentyn. As Doran follows gender-blind inheritance, unlike the rest of Westeros, his eldest child Arianne is also his heir in the novels. The TV series has avoided making any definitive statements on the matter, and even Doran's lines in this episode are vague, which is what the writers did back in Season 2, when they weren't sure if Shireen Baratheon would ever appear in the TV series. So they could rephrase lines to say that Stannis has no sons, potentially leave room only to later say that he has a daughter. In the novels, Doran actually sells In the novels, Dorne actually sends Nymeria Sand to King's Landing to secure Marcella and to take Oberyn's place on the small council, while Trystane remains in Dorne. In the TV version, Dorne sends Trystane instead. But this does solve the problem of how to send Marcella back to King's Landing when she doesn't want to be separated from Trystane. Jaime notices that Marcella is so taken by the Martells that she is even wearing revealing Dornish-style clothing, better suited to the hot climate. He quips about her dress by asking if she is cold, implying it is too revealing and doesn't cover her well. The implication of being cold is the same remark that Cersei made about Margaery Tyrell's revealing dress in Season 3, Episode 2, Dark Wings, Dark Words. Marcella's fashion choice is a sign that her allegiance has shifted more to the Martells than to Cersei and the Lannisters. Marcella explains that her Lion Lannister pendant necklace, which mounted Cersei as a threat in the House of Black and White, was simply stolen from her room. It remains unclear, though, who sent it and why. Ellaria and the Sandsnakes had no reason to forewarn Cersei about their scheme. Doran might have sent it, debate the Lannisters tried to rescue Marcella. In fact, he was wise to the Sandsnakes' plan the entire time, and would make a big show of stopping them, to convince the Lannisters that he wanted to avoid a war at all costs when he was in fact secretly preparing for one. However, such a plan seems overcomplicated and dangerous, because it could have resulted in Marcella's death, as nearly happens in the fourth novel. Doran could have both foiled the scheme and convinced Cersei that he was loyal to the crown by simply arresting his nieces and Ellaria, and sending an explicit message to Cersei, seeing that he found out they would start troubles, and he foiled them of loyalty to the crown. This is the way he actually acts in the novels. Ellaria says that Jaime writes like a 7-year-old with his left hand. In the novels, Jaime himself notes that he could barely write legibly with his left hand, like a child first learning his letters. Doran refers to Tommen as King of the Andals and the First Men. In the novels, the Vault is actually King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men. Indeed, the modern Dornishmen are the descendants of the Rhoynar who migrated to Dorne 1,000 years ago. The TV series didn't start introducing Dorne until Season 4 and barely mentioned beforehand, fear deluging viewers with too much information. Thus, in the first 3 seasons, the title consistently omitted any mention of the Rhoynar, going back to the Season 1 premiere, when Ned Stark recites it and pronounces sentence of the execution. Any mention of the Rhoynars was also made in Season 4's first of its name at Tommen's coronation ceremony, even though Oberyn Martell was present in the audience. Missandei also introduces Daenerys early in Season 4 as Queen of the Andals of the First Men, omitting mention of the Rhoynar. Then in the Season 4 finale, Missandei abruptly referred to Daenerys as Queen of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, contradicting not just the TV series in general, but that specific character's own lines earlier in the same season. Now Doran, ruler of the Dornishmen, who are descendants of the Rhoynar, is himself presented as omitting the Rhoynar from the title. It isn't clear which one is meant to be official in the TV continuity, given that the Rhoynar edition was mentioned only once in 4 seasons into the TV series, though not constantly applied. Game of Thrones Wiki continues to assume for the moment that the title was changed to King of the Andals and the First Men in the TV continuity. The hands-on begin the Nymeria tying Sand playing their prison cell is actually an in-joke by the writers to an incident that occurred off-set. During one of the season rap parties, David Benioff got very drunk and started goofing around with Jason Momoa. One thing led to another, and Benioff became so brazen that he challenged Momoa to the handslide game he had seen him take part in before, and which Momoa was very good at, the variant of the Mercy hand game. Momoa is very strong, 6'4", tall and 245 pounds, and the inebriated Benioff ended up losing. By the time Benioff got home later that night, after he had sobered up and some regained more feeling in his arms, he turned to his wife and said that Momoa had actually broken his hand. The story circulated around that Momoa actually broke Benioff's hand in a fit of anger after learning for the first time that Drogo would die at the end of Season 1. It was just a false rumor that got corrupted from this incident. Ensar Zoloric is actually alive in the novels, and is as yet unknown if he is the true leader of the Sons of the Harpy. In the novels, Daenerys Targaryen notices how riding dragons uses different commands than when riding horses. Because horses are prey animals, they actively turn away from danger, so a rider hits them on their left flank to make them turn right. In contrast, she realizes dragons are predators, So if she hits them on the left side, they'll exclusively turn left to counterattack whatever is hurting them. Linguist David J. Pearson explained a mix that happened with Daenerys' command to Drogon to fly when she leaves the arena. The other subtitles actually said Balad, even though she audibly seems to just say fly. Pearson explained that she was supposed to say the High Valyrian command Soves, which had previously been heard in the season 3 finale, albeit in the plural Sovetes. This is what Peterson officially handed in as both the script and audio files. The problem was that in the specific take that was used in the final shot, actress Emilia Clarke just says fly in English. Peterson noted that this sort of thing happens all the time. Production is hurrying and an actor just forgets to translate a line. Months later, the ADR team tried to fix it so Clarke is actually saying a non-English word, and they asked Peterson for an audio recording of the original line. Peterson surmised, however, that the ADR team then realized that because the camera's focused on Clarke's face, the mouth movements of her saying fly do not match with the two-syllable long Soves. They didn't contact Peterson again, but they do have all the materials he submitted. It drew upon watching it that they must have used a Dothraki language word which both matched her mouth movements and which made sense in that context. Vlad is a Dothraki writing command, basically a variant of giddy up or run to the horizon, etc. So able to fix the lines so it makes some sense in this context. Though Peterson noted that Vlad isn't spelled with an H, subtitlers must have been just sounding it out. Specifically, Pearson explained that the instruction books he sent to the ADR team listed the writing command as Frakas Valad, which literally means to touch the horizon, and like other languages, is just from several variant commands, basically just equivalent to giddy up. Valad specifically just means horizon, but listening for the command, he left a note that the whole command is often shortened to just Valad, because commands shouted to a horse tend to be short and not long sentences. The TV series has switched around the actions and fates of several of the men who were on Arya's kill list, specifically men who served Gregor Clegane and Harrenhal. 3 men on the list were Meretrand, Palliver, and another man called Raph the Sweeling who does not appear in the TV series. In the books, it is Raph who accompanies the Master of Coin to Ironbank of Bravos, now it's Sir Meryn. Raph is interested in having sex with underage girls in the novels. This is not an invention of the TV series, though Meryn specifically is not, because these traits carried over to him by combining their storylines. Maester also wasn't the representative sent to Bravos, but Sir Harris Swift. Sir Harris isn't after Sir Kevin Lannister assumes power, not as hand of the king, but as Lord Regent. Maester had to actually have some oyster shucking lessons. Moreover, the gloves she wears were actually functional, because oyster shells are very sharp. The oysters Arya sells to the Thin Man were actually full of mushrooms because the actor playing him is a vegetarian. The oysters that Macy is eating when she sees her man trying to arrive for the first time were actually made from bits of chicken. When Arya is in the brothel, she takes payment in coppers and silvers. Bravos doesn't use the same currency that the Seven Kingdoms do, based on the gold dragon coin and its denominations, the silver stag and copper penny. In fact, Bravosi currency takes the form of square iron coins, and these have appeared prominently in the TV series since season 3. That being said, not much is known about the Bravosi currency system, and it's entirely possible that just as the overall gold dragon currency system in Westeros has smaller denominations that use other metals, the Bravosi currency system might also have denominations of copper and silver coins. Alternatively, these might have been other Lannister guardsmen out of uniform visiting the brothel and just offering to pay in gold dragon denominations. The exterior shots of the Ironbank of Bravos, built in the Tycoon stores and Mace walked towards, was a local church that the production team wasn't actually allowed to walk inside of. Notice that when Arya watches Tycho, Mace, and Meryn, while they appear to be walking in and out of the building, they are actually just miming it. The doorway itself is always off camera. Mace Tyrell and Meryn Trent were ordered by Cersei to leave for Bravos 5 episodes ago in the Sons of the Harpy. It doesn't take that long to travel between King's Landing and Bravos, because they're relatively close across the narrow sea. Bravos is a bit further north, around the same latitude as the northern coast of the Vale. Given that scenes set in Bravos are not directly connected to scenes in other parts of the world, I mean reacting to letters, etc., it is possible that they are not being shown synchronized with the same day events occur in scenes set at King's Landing in the same episode, but the presentation of viewers is spaced out for dramatic pacing. When Johnson does appear for a full episode, it doesn't mean he just sat around for a few weeks doing nothing. Mace is directly asked how his voyage went, and he says it was fine, not mentioning any delays. There was no Kingmaker III in the Song of Ice and Fire novels, and Mace Tyrrell describes Georgia outlaw moneylending throughout the Seven Kingdoms. There was only one King Maegor, second son of Aegon the Conqueror, who was an infamous tyrant. To point that history popularly remembers him as Maegor the Cruel. He has been mentioned several times in the TV series since Season 1. While she didn't mention him by name, when Cersei and the High Sparrow discussed how the Targaryens suspended the faith of Militant over 200 years ago, it was actually Maegor who ruthlessly warred with the faith of the Seven to question their military order. In the generations after his death, Maegor was infamous. He was called Maegor the Cruel after all. The Targaryens avoided ever naming one of their children after him again, except the son of Aerion Brightflame. Mr. Aemon's older brother, who was a very minor character, but Aerion was wildly insane. There are 4 possibilities. First, that this was a script error. Second, that the actor himself flipped the line and was a con in post-production. Third, that the writers intentionally had Mace mix up his historical facts as little in-jokes to make him look foolish. And finally, that the scriptwriters intentionally decided to invent a new Kingmaker III, by extension Maegor II, in the TV continuity. Similarly, back in Season 4's Breaker Chains, Tywin listed off several kings such as Baelor the First Targaryen and Robert Baratheon, but also King Orys I, even though there was never a king on the Iron Throne in Orys. That instance could be explained by saying that this Orys I was infamous local king of the Stormlands, because Tywin never said that he was a king on the Iron Throne. However, in this episode, Mace says fairly clear that this the Third apparently ruled over all the Seven Kingdoms on this side of the Iron Throne, making it less easy to explain. Game of Thrones Wiki managed to contact George R. R. Martin about the surface to Maegor III, but he later responded they had no more idea about it than we do, because the scriptwriters hadn't mentioned it to him. He suspected that this might be a mistake, as the TV writers would be reluctant to invent new kings into the timeline, but also that it might have been a subtle in-joke that Mace is getting his history wrong in universe. But ultimately he really didn't know the story behind Maegor III. Game of Thrones Wiki also managed to contact actor Roger Ashton Griffiths, who confirmed that Maegor III is what was written in the script. A wide array of cultures are represented by the different fighters in the pit. Jorah Mormont first faced a Braavosi bearded priest armed with his long axe, then a Braavosi water dancer, having himself killed a Dothraki warrior. The Dance of Dragons won several Emmy Awards for 2015, outstanding visual effects, outstanding special visual effects, and outstanding single-camera picture editing for a drama series. Nice. So overall, I think this episode is pretty darn good, and it definitely will lead to some things that happen in the next episode, so there's that. So overall, I give The Dance of Dragons 4 Iron Thrones out of 5. But anyway, tune in on Fridays. We took the final episode of Season 5, Mother's Mercy. So, until then, remember everyone, winter is coming.